The United States says a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz could now be very close. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has suggested an agreement could come within days. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says progress has been made and Washington hopes an agreement can be reached very shortly. And reports suggest that US, Iran and Oman are discussing an interim arrangement that could reopen one of the world's most important energy routes, the Strait of Hormuz. Well, this comes just days after US President Donald Trump called off another planned attack on Iran to give diplomacy more time. But there is still no final deal, and crucial questions remain over who controls shipping through Hormuz, whether Iran can charge ships for using the route, and whether a temporary shipping agreement can eventually lead to a wider US-Iran settlement. For India, this matters enormously because what happens in this narrow stretch of water can eventually affect everything from the country's oil import bill to inflation and potentially the price pressure consumers face on fuel. Hi, I'm Nupur and you're watching Control Z, your cheat code to navigating adulthood. Now, for weeks, Washington and Tehran have moved between military escalation and diplomacy. Trump had threatened another major American attack on Iran, but he ultimately held back, saying Iran and countries in the region have asked for more time to work towards an agreement. Now, there are signs those negotiations may actually be moving forward. According to Axios, the US, Iran and Oman are nearing an interim agreement that could restore maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. One proposal reportedly being discussed is a temporary arrangement lasting around 60 days, potentially giving negotiators more time to work towards a broader settlement. And now US Secretary Marco Rubio has added to that optimism. Rubio said there is a conversation and negotiation that we are involved in between Oman and Iran over reopening Hormuz to commercial shipping. And importantly, he also said that Washington hopes that it will happen very shortly. That is one of the clearest indications yet from the Trump administration that diplomacy is making progress. But don't mistake that for a deal being done, because Iran and the United States still appear to disagree over what reopening the strait would actually look like. Because reports also suggest that Iran and Oman have been discussing a system under which vessels entering the Persian Gulf could travel through a channel overseen by Iran, while ships leaving would use a route closer to Oman. Now, there have also been discussions about fees for services such as security and environment protection. Washington has pushed back against both ideas. The American position is that Hormuz is an international waterway and Iran should not be able to unilaterally control passage through it or charge ships simply for traveling through. So this is not merely a negotiation about opening a shipping lane. It is also a negotiation about who gets to control it once it opens. And that matters because the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most strategically important pieces of water on Earth. Before the current conflict began, around 130 to 140 vessels were typically passing through the strait every day. Now, on Tuesday, Reuters reported just 8 vessels making the transit, 5 tankers and 3 bulk carriers. That gives you an idea of just how dramatically normal shipping has been disrupted. And the reason the rest of the world cares is oil. Hormuz is a critical export route for major Gulf energy producers. When shipping through it becomes dangerous, the consequences go beyond whether individual tankers can sail. Insurance becomes more expensive. Shipping becomes riskier. Oil traders start pricing in the possibility of supply disruption, and crude prices rise. Now, we have already seen the reverse of this happen in the last few days as hopes of diplomacy increased. Oil prices have indeed eased as markets began betting that the risk of another major US-Iran escalation had fallen. And that's where India comes in. India imports the overwhelming majority of the crude oil it consumes. So if Hormuz reopens safely and stays open, India could benefit from a reduction in that geopolitical risk premium. But Iran has publicly disputed Donald Trump's description of direct negotiations while portraying Oman as the party with which it is negotiating. Reuters has also reported that uncertainty remains despite signs of progress from mediators on all sides. So, Washington may be optimistic, Tehran may be negotiating, and Oman may actually be mediating. But the exact shape of the final arrangement remains unresolved, and ships are still operating in an extraordinarily fragile environment. And after months of war, threats, disrupted shipping, and aborted military strikes, the real test isn't simply whether Hormuz reopens, it's whether it can stay open.